This little guy has everything I wanted out of a travel camera. It has similar 4K video recording abilities as the FX3, a full-frame sensor, internal image stabilization, 15 plus stops of dynamic range, great low-light capabilities, and S-Log color profiles for color grading in post. It really feels a lot like a smaller version of the FX3, and it's $2,000 cheaper, which is nice. To test it out as a travel camera, I brought it on a recent trip I had to Brighton, Majorca, and London. And I didn't just shoot a lot with this thing, I really was not very precious with it at all. I had it around my neck, I shoved it in my pocket, in my backpack. I feel like I really beat the shit out of this thing, and it never let me down once. It also never overheated on me, which was something I saw a lot of people were complaining about when I was first researching this camera, but I never had that problem. So I'm going to show you some of the footage I grabbed when I was traveling and call out some of the key features in action. First stop was Brighton in the UK, where I paid a little visit to the MPB Brighton team, including our UK videographer, Jakob. When we arrived in Brighton, it was a Sunday and it was St. Patrick's Day, so before getting too much into camera talk and work mode, we decided to celebrate properly. Well, that looks familiar. There he is. Jakob was nice enough to let me tag along on a video he was making with Amy and Ian. He and our other videographer, Hayden, were both shooting with FX3s, and I with my little ZV-E1. So first, let's just talk general 4K video and image quality. The ZV-E1 is very similar to the FX3 in terms of its menu and its 4K video codecs. I won't get too in-depth here, but usually I record in SI 4K, but there are less heavy 4K file format choices such as S and HS, which all have 422 10-bit recording options and varying frame rate capabilities. This is pretty much the same selection as the FX3. We were all shooting with the same 4K recording settings listed here, and let me tell you, this little camera really held its own in terms of image quality being nearly identical to that of the FX3. Actually, if you're watching this video right now, you should also go watch the Age is Just a Number video, because then you can see just how seamless the ZV-E1 footage works with the footage from the FX3s that we were also shooting with. And for lenses, I really just stuck with this little 28 to 60mm f4 to 5.6 lens. I wanted something that was going to keep the whole setup pretty small, but I'm used to Sony G Master lenses, so I was a little concerned that this tiny guy was going to kind of bring the quality down a little, or that the limited f-stop was going to leave me high and dry in low light situations. Plus, it has this function where in order for it to work once it's attached to the camera, you have to kind of click it into place into the first focal length at 28 here. And honestly, I didn't mind this so much because when I wasn't using it, I can keep it pretty small. And that was helpful for like a travel camera. But Jakob actually did mention to me that lenses that have this function are the ones that tend to break more often. But to be honest, I was super impressed with this lens. The image quality was better than I expected. I sometimes wish I had a longer lens to grab some shots where I was further away from the action, but honestly I wouldn't trade this lens for something bigger since I was trying to keep my travel setup light. On the whole, I was really happy with this one. I also bought myself this little variable ND filter, which is very cute and extremely necessary when outside. It cost me like 16 bucks and I totally recommend it. Stabilization is iffy at best. We'll see how that looks in post. When it comes to internal image stabilization, I wasn't all that impressed. I mean, the FX3 is pretty unbeatable when it comes to image stabilization when going handheld. The ZV-E1 stabilization, however, looked a little artificial, and using a lens that has stabilization probably would have been helpful. That being said, there were times where it did work out really well and I got some really smooth motion. I found the best results of stabilization to be on the dynamic active mode, although it does crop your image a good bit, and it can look a little artificial if you're not careful. So after I was done crashing the UK team shoot and bumming around Brighton for a bit, a much necessary change of scenery was in order. In beautiful Majorca with my beautiful fiance, I was clearly working very hard on this video. I'm sorry, am I supposed to be talking about camera stuff? Well, I shot some slow motion stuff down by the water, and again, no complaints. You can go up to 120 frames per second with the ZV-E1, but I was sticking at 60 frames for this footage. But I did do a quick 120 FPS test in the studio. Again, this camera never once overheated on me, even when I was recording in the highest quality possible in higher frame rates. Now, maybe if I was recording longer, more continuous shots, I might have run into some issues, but for what I was doing, I never had a problem. When it comes to color grading in post, I'm very familiar with S-Log3, and that's what I shot all this footage in. I also love shooting with a LUT already loaded into the monitor that I'm using, because this is just super helpful so you get an idea of what your image is going to look like once you get to the color grading phase. It's also helpful if you're just doing run and gun shooting and you're not constantly looking at your histogram or your false color or your exposure index or whatever you use. I wanted to travel light, so I didn't have a monitor with me, but this camera, like the FX3, allowed me to upload my own LUTs directly to the camera. But if you don't want to do too much color grading, then you can always shoot in other color profiles like S-Cinetone. It wasn't all sunshine beaches in Majorca. We went ahead and tried this cave tour experience, and I mean there's really no better place to try low light stuff than in an actual cave. So when I was shooting with the ZV-E1, I was really sticking at 800 ISO since that's the low base ISO for the FX3. But the secondary base ISO for the FX3 is 12,800, which is insane, and there's little to no grain at that high ISO. So I wanted to see how the ZV-E1 did at 12,800 in this very dark and extraordinarily boring cave tour. Again, I was super impressed with this camera. Just like the FX3, the ZV-E1 really held its own in the darkest of environments at 12,800. And as you can see, there's really not a lot of grain visible. I tried this again while we were strolling through the town of Sóller at night, and again, I was really impressed. I even gave the image stabilization another go, set to dynamic active, and honestly, when I'm rolling my feet and keeping a good grip on this thing, it looks pretty good. Alright, so I didn't want to spend too much time talking about still photography, but our content marketing manager, Christy, told me I had to, so here's a very short little bit on that. First off, it's super easy to quickly switch from video to stills. It's a flip of a switch and you're there. And I took some shots of this wine bottle and these pretty flowers and shells, and it looks pretty good. So if you're looking for a hybrid camera, the ZV-E1 is really the full package. Now gone are the sun-drenched beaches and quaint little villages of Majorca. Upon me are the foggy and umbrella-lined streets of London. And what's left to really say about this awesome camera? I suppose I could talk about autofocus, which definitely came in handy when trying to keep my fiancé in focus while we were traveling through crowded places like Borough Market. To be honest, I never really used autofocus until I started shooting with the FX3 and was completely blown away by the autofocus capabilities of that camera. So I wanted to see how the ZV-E1 did with autofocus. Locking onto faces, bodies, arms, legs, fingers, what have you is extremely easy and works like a charm. Focus shifting is as fast or as paced as you want it to be, and mastering the autofocus abilities will allow you to focus on everything else, such as smooth movement and composition. I'll also take a minute to talk about audio. Rewind to Brighton, I was using a VideoMic Pro Plus attached to the top of the camera, which worked great and allowed me to capture some high-quality audio bits. What camera are you shooting with today, Alice?
Canon 60.
You love it?
It does the job.
It is leagues beyond my old Mark II that I started with. Hard to let this go and switch to an R5, but I think I'm going to stick to this one for a while.
But for everywhere else I went, I was just using the internal mic, with this little fuzzy wind muff on there that comes with the camera. I was also able to spec the audio with some wired headphones, which is a big win over cameras like the ZV-1. And after some little audio adjustments in post, I'm very impressed with this internal mic, which is something I never find to be the case on any camera. You be the judge.
See, I got all these pockets, so you should keep my phone here.
Yeah.
Should I get this part?
The meatiest part. Yeah.
Sure.
I used this camera for the entirety of my trip, and I can honestly say it's the perfect travel camera for cinematographers wanting a nice sidekick to bring along on their journeys, or for travel content creators wanting to up the quality of their videos. And honestly, I really feel like I only scratched the surface of this camera's capabilities. It has a lot of features that I think would be really appealing to full-time content creators and travel bloggers. These features include product showcase mode, background defocus abilities, the fully articulating screen for self-shooting, and a whole slew of abilities you should definitely remember if you're considering this camera. But as a filmmaker and a cinematographer, I really fell in love with this camera. It's pretty affordable, especially if you buy it used. It is a full-frame sensor, and it has a lot of the same capabilities as the Sony FX3, which is a camera I really love. And honestly, I'm considering buying one just because I would love to have it as a sidekick travel camera, or even use it as a B-cam for my FX3. But we'd love to hear what you think. Let us know your thoughts on the ZV-E1 in the comments below. I'm Justin. Thanks for watching.